And I would have to say maybe the best day I had on the set of Teen Wolf was not an episode I was in, but it was watching him direct his episode.
Fenris, buddy, this makes no sense. You're saying like, no, I don't talk about werewolves anymore. Okay, sir, sign your name. Yes, Conrad Werewolf.
I'm totally like 22, but I forgot my ID at home. Can you buy me like a kegger?
It was a banner year for Zima, and Will is to blame.
Just being able to find so much joy in Teen Wolf. Welcome to Return to Beacon Hills, a Teen Wolf rewatch podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alyssa Clark, and I'm joined by
Kate Colvin
and Will Wallace.
Every week, we'll be watching and talking about the hit and TV series one episode at a time. But this week, we're talking about Search for a Cure, a series of 6 tiny webisodes produced by AT&T. They were released between June 29th after Season 1, Episode 5, The Tell, and July 25th before Episode 9 of Season 1, Wolfsbane. While it's not clear exactly where the events of Search for a Cure fall on the timeline of Season 1, they do seem to take place before Episode 8, Lunatic. If you're watching Teen Wolf for the first time and you're worried about spoilers, have no fear. This podcast is broken up into 2 sections, Alpha and Beta. The Beta section is for first-timers who are just now finding this awesome series and don't want to be spoiled about what's to come. The second section, Alpha, is where we go full spoilers and talk about not just the current episode, but the entire Teen Wolf series as well as its place in the fandom. In the show notes of your podcast app of choice, you'll find time codes for the Alpha and Beta sections. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RTBH Podcast and Tumblr and TikTok at Return to Beacon Hills.
If you'd like to support the show, you can find us on Patreon at RTBH Podcast. There, our Wolfie patrons will gain access to awesome exclusives like early access to episodes, full moon AMAs, the Beacon Hills Movie Club, where we watch and provide commentary for movies starring the amazing cast of Teen Wolf and featuring the work of our talented crew, as well as guest video interviews and a monthly watch party. So head on over to patreon.com/RTBH podcast and join the pack. This week's 5-star review comes from Podcast Sometimes, and they say, great recap pod by people who know the show.
If you'd like to ask us questions or offer suggestions for future topics to discuss, you can email us at returntobeaconhills@gmail.com.
Search for the Cure was written and directed by Jeff Davis. Also, this week's interview with John Posey, actor, and Tyler Posey's dad will be placed entirely in the Alpha section because of all the spoilers we talk about.
In Search for a Cure, Scott and Stiles track down a disgraced doctor who might just be an expert on werewolves in hopes of curing Scott.
The intro for Search for a Cure is very video game-esque, which I think is funny because they actually did have a very short-lived Teen Wolf game that they put online, but it was very different from the style.
Right. This seems like more of a console game.
Right.
Yeah.
Style.
Angela Harvey worked on that video game.
I wish it was still available for us to play and to give a review.
It would be fun.
Me too. That would be such a fun bonus episode.
Oh, we could have done a Let's Play. Oh, that would have been fun.
Right? Ah, so sad.
Thanks, MTV and Viacom.
Why does it say Teen Wolf Instinct in the corner? Do either of you know?
I noticed that when we were watching. I do not know what that is. Maybe that was...
My first thought was that it was maybe a reference to the tagline, trust the instinct or trust your instincts, but that was season 2, right?
Yeah, because the first one is Love Be Afraid.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe that was just some marketing thing, maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I feel like it had to have been.
Yeah.
So after this sort of video game-like intro, Scott hangs upside down from the top of Stiles' Jeep to ask Stiles what he found out. And what's really fun about it is that it's kind of a role reversal from the pilot where Stiles startles Scott while hanging upside down from the roof.
Yeah,
it's great.
It was a very cute scene. I do feel like it was a little rude for him to jump on Roscoe the Jeep. Does that Jeep not suffer enough as is?
Does it not suffer enough, truly? Will no one think of the Jeeps?
It's great. Again, I still wish Roscoe had kept like all its war wounds throughout the run of the show instead of being fixed over time. So Stiles shows Scott a video of Dr. Conrad Haberlin giving a presentation on werewolves to his peers who ridicule him throughout his presentation. And it's very rude. Just hear them laughing the whole time while he's trying to talk about serious things.
Unless he's like presenting at a cryptozoology conference, I feel like I understand why they were ridiculing him.
But he's at the same convention where James Spader spoke on Egyptian aliens in that movie Stargate.
I have not seen that.
Nerd.
He was also laughed out of that room.
Well, as he should be.
Watch movies, people. That's all I'm saying. That movie
I never
really
watch
good.
Movies. It's just I don't even own a TV. That's why I'm working on this.
I know, because all you
podcast.
watch everything on TikTok, on your phones. Movies should be in black and white and without sound, the way God intended.
The way God intended.
I love how so much of this so far is just them streaming a video on a phone because AT&T is the one presenting this, who gave the money, I guess, to produce this. They're the advertising partner. So it's just let's watch this presentation he gives on this tiny little screen for
it's us watching them watching this 16. Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole first episode is them watching a YouTube video.
I love my Teen Wolf, but they were real bad about phone advertisements.
Making TV shows is expensive.
It is.
Got to get that budget from somewhere. That and Twizzlers and gum and all the other things. And Toyota and Macy's. So, yeah.
Reese cups.
Reese cups.
Reese cups are the only acceptable one. The editing effects for the video of Dr. Conrad really look like the video effects I use in CapCut to make edits for TikTok. He's just a lot of weird glitching going on for no apparent reason. I'm like, AT&T, are you trying to sell us on using your phone? Why does it keep glitching out? Is this the original footage? I don't know. I just don't know about the quality of your products, AT&T.
One of Fenris's peers actually got that video and added all those effects as another way to ridicule him. This ridiculation.
You're committed to that burn.
Yes. This burn has layers. So
I would have liked to have seen the remix version of it.
Oh, auto-tune. You know how they would do those auto-tune remixes of people talking?
There's a werewolf. But yeah.
werewolf.
It's like a dubstep version too.
That would totally fit in with Teen Wolf.
Yeah,
Dubstep.
Definitely a lot of dubstep on our show.
Stiles explains that Dr. Haberland was so humiliated that he legally changed his name to Dr. Fenris, and that's how Stiles knows he's got the right guy. Scott stares at him blankly, a look that we get a lot from Scott.
Oh.
When he's talking to Stiles. And that time Jackson had to explain to him what Argent meant, and some other times.
I feel like there are many more times where Scott just has that glassy expression because he doesn't understand what's happening.
But this is why, the Argent thing had to be pointed out to Scott by Jackson, because it just did not click for him. And I feel like Stiles just didn't even take the time to explain it because of this experience right here. Like, I'm not even gonna bother.
I won't bother.
They've been friends long enough.
Damn research himself.
He knows Scott's.
What was it? Inquiry it, Scott.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
So Stiles explains that in Norse mythology, Fenris is the son of Loki. Since Fenris is a giant wolf, he's said to be the influence for the story of Little Red Riding Hood.
This guy has a serious hard-on for werewolves.
Don't you mean a giant not for werewolves?
Oh!
That's disgusting.
You're welcome.
We don't kink shame on this podcast.
No, we do not kink shaming. Kink shaming is awful. You should not do that. All kinks are valid, except nodding. Missionary or nothing through a hole in a sheet.
Oh, God.
Preferably
Moving
crying.
on.
Scott asks, if he was so humiliated, why would he change his name to that of a giant wolf? Stiles guesses that it's because Dr. Fenris, despite everything, still believes in werewolves. While he can't say for sure that Dr. Fenris knows about a cure, he has watched all of Dr. Fenris's videos, and he seems to know everything there is to know about werewolves and other shapeshifters, such as berserkers. That makes Fenris the closest thing they have to an expert.
I love how they underline the word werewolves and blood. And they're just we assume people won't pause and read this stuff, so we're just gonna highlight the major points.
Right.
Werewolves,
There's sort of some
blood.
miscellaneous text behind him as he speaks, but they're but are people really gonna pause and read all this stuff? The answer is yes.
The answer is
fans.
Yes.
They did not know
So
that
much
he believed it.
yes.
So much yes. Later on in this show, there is a book that gets read. There's a novel that gets read in season 5. I wrote all of that. And
Did you really?
I did.
I didn't know that.
I guess I hid that from y'all, like everything else.
Yes. So if we pause it, they'll be the wrong type of yours. And
Oh,
stuff
No,
right there.
you can't say that.
I can totally say that.
Wow. All right. All right.
Will's like, and that's the end of this podcast.
Thank you for listening to Return to Beacon
Worth
Hills.
it for
We'll
that
be back
joke.
next week
Without
after I
Alyssa.
cry. So next week we'll have two hosts.
Aw.
Hey, and
Me
Calissa.
and my tears. So but yes, there's a book coming up in a couple of seasons, and there's a novel that plays into the story a little bit. And I wrote all of that stuff because we knew, because we were going to have shots of like turning pages. It was like, well, we can't just have lorem ipsum or whatever.
Ipsum.
We can't just have that. So lorem
guys
ipsum,
learn.
children, is not real language. It looks like Latin, but it's just words.
I thought it was Latin.
Is it actually?
not?
I don't think it's Latin. I think it's just made up. Like, I think it
Oh.
looks like Latin, but it's just words that, instead of typing out like a newspaper story or something, they would just do it all in lorem ipsum. And because they were like, well, back in the 40s, nobody's going to ever see this again after they leave the theater. So we don't actually have to write a story for this newspaper article because they're only going to see it for a couple of frames. And little did they know. But yes, so I did write all that stuff. I look forward
I
to
want
getting to
a
that.
copy of that book.
Yeah, me too.
Apparently, it is a corrupted version of a Latin phrase. So the more
Oh.
you know.
Okay, nice.
Scott points out that they also have Derek, who is also close to an expert. I mean, sure. Okay. Stiles says, there you go, just mentioning his name again. Wow. Do you enjoy hurting me?
Okay, Stiles, your reaction, it sounds like y'all broke up. Like, this does not sound like
know,
a...
right?
It totally does.
This
Oh
does
my
not
God.
sound like we're enemies or something. This feels more like they've broken up and Scott has been commanded not to speak his name around
It's very
Stiles.
like wounded sounding.
it's
like,
it's wounded.
You can't even why would you bring his name up to me? You can't do that. You can't say his name in front of me. We talked about this.
Yeah. I mean, it's not what they were going for with this line, but it's just the tone and the inflection. It's just like,
Yeah.
this is the take you used. I mean, I'm happy with that. I am totally fine with that. But it's just like, this is
Choices
the take
were
you
made.
used.
Yeah, it does.
Was there not
it
a
totally
second?
feels
Granted,
like that.
I know this thing was shot super fast, so it's like they might have just done like one take of everything and had to move so quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if they shot this entire thing in one night.
Hmm.
So, that might have been the only choice they had. But still, it's pretty wounded for
It is.
this guy to be saying
This
this.
is-
So
Our little Derek moment of the mini series.
we need a.
It's just the tone. The tone is very
it's
like
the tone.
my feelings are still delicate on this matter, and you know that.
Yeah.
It's the little Derek moment of this webisode.
Ah, yes.
Oh.
We need to get fans who are listening to us. If somebody could make the more you know gif, but it just says Steric moment trailing behind a bright burning star,
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
My God, I love that.
I
I
would
wish
give
I knew how to make
you
gifts.
not
$1.
money, but
What's something I have
admiration,
more of?
and that is worthless. So I mean priceless. But yeah. So somebody
Did
get
I
on
say
that, please.
worthless?
Somebody get on that, please.
I love Derek. I love me some Derek. He's an underappreciated character. I'm surprised Scott brings him up here because he doesn't at all seem to respect Derek. And Derek is pretty far for an expert. As someone who's raised a werewolf, there's a lot of stuff he does not know.
That is true. However, I have two sort of rejoinders in Derek's defense. And one of those is that it seems like the thing he knows the least about is bitten wolves. And I've constructed an elaborate headcanon for why that would be, as we've discussed in a previous episode. The other thing being that Scott doesn't actually ask Derek questions, unlike Fenris in this episode. They ask many follow-up and clarifying questions of Fenris, something that really just doesn't happen with Derek, or rather, the only time it happens is Stiles tries to ask some clarifying questions until he is glared into the back of the car.
I want to disagree here because I think Scott asks Derek a lot of questions. They are just always formed as angry accusations.
Does he ask questions?
Is that what
No,
a question
because they're
is?
actually angry accusations.
So I feel like that's just definitionally wrong.
In an attempt to get a few words in with Fenris, Scott and Stiles wait for him in a parking lot and follow him to his car.
Not suspicious at all. And it's really all from Stiles. Like, I feel like Stiles is the one who looks suspicious, and it's just like his dopey friend is just there with him as he's being suspicious. And it's just, yeah.
To me, it actually looks like they're going to approach him to ask if he can find them beer at like the closest liquor store.
They do.
They do.
They do. These, if you're like, it's a Friday night and these two guys are just in front of a gas station, like Zippy or something like that, be like, as you're walking, you're like, when you're walking towards the door, you're like, they're going to ask me to buy them beer. It's like, that's exactly what would happen.
I'm totally like 22, but I forgot my ID at home. Can you buy me like a kegger? The Mike's Hard Lemonade, please.
The keg of beer.
And Mike's Hard Lemonade.
I liked Zimas in college.
I knew you were going to.
I was the only person keeping Zima afloat from the years 2002 to 2005.
2002 and later in 2002.
It was a better year for Zima, and Will is to blame.
And then everyone at Zima came to their senses and were like, what were we thinking? And they just
now I'm just
poured it down the
like,
drain.
I would love to know what Zima tasted like, just because I was too young. I have no sense of it, but it's like such a fun joke, and I'm curious.
I don't even know how to
What was
describe
it exactly?
It was a
like a wine cooler
beer.
sort of thing?
It was like a wine cooler / beer.
Wine cooler beer, and had this baby that was clear.
That rhymed.
It did rhyme. Well done.
I'm so glad that this was the last of the backward baseball cap on Stiles. It's not a great look for him.
Was it the first and the last all in one?
First and last.
I don't think I remember
I'm okay
seeing
with
it.
that.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's like that look and then the blazer over
I think it's the only time we see Stiles in a hat ever, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, maybe. I don't think anybody ever wears hats on this show.
Yeah, it's not a hat show.
It's not a hat show.
It's a helmet show.
No, wait. There
Well,
are
that's not true.
beanies.
Nazis
Because
wear
remember,
hats
there was the
later
whole
on.
beanie thing.
Beanies, yeah.
There was the whole beanie thing. Allison has her like beanie of teenage rebellion that she puts on before she jumps out the window.
Parkours. And when she got
beanies are
home
slightly
and
different.
walked right through the front door because she forgot, her mom snatched it off and was like, I'm taking back this beanie of rebellion. I never should have given this to you. It's too much power for a child.
With the backwards baseball cap, I mean, Stiles just looks like he's like in the intro to a Sean Cody video.
Who is that? Is that a rapist?
Signing off for the evening.
That joke will never not be funny. Thank you, Parks and Rec and Jerry Gergich.
Okay, but actually, though, Calissa, are you going to explain that joke for us?
If it's in there, you got to explain it.
Sean Cody is a gay pornography studio that was founded in 2001. The website predominantly features young, muscular men in solo and hardcore bareback scenes.
Oh,
it's
Go
amateur
on.
sex films, gay sex films.
but they're like they have bros. Like
They have a lot of like bros. And if you Google, there was a lot of like parody stuff going on. I don't know if Sean Cody's still super big, but around the time Teen Wolf was on, there was like a big parody thing where they'd like take pictures and like add the little Sean Cody like logo in the corner. So like if you actually Google Sean Cody, something that pops up is a picture of and I'm actually just Googling Sean Cody, and under Google Images, there's one of Tyler Posey standing next to Tyler Posey standing next to Daniel Sharman in the locker room. And it just says at the bottom, if Colton Haynes was in this too, I would buy this at all costs. It has a little like Sean Cody logo.
Take my
in the
money.
corner. There's also one that has like John Krasinski and Chris Pratt with like the logo next to them. Chris Pratt is wearing like the baseball cap, and it was just like, yeah, kind of like dude bros spring break kind of like.
I got you. I think I'm getting an idea of the vibe here.
Sean Cody is what David Dakota aspired to. As he's being followed, Fenris speeds up, thinking Scott and Stiles are going to mug him. That suspicion doesn't go away when they straight up tackle him to the ground like muggers. Like, I feel like
muggers do.
Well, I'm sure I've never been mugged or mugged. So I don't know. But I'm just like, come on, guys. You're not helping your case here. Stiles specifically is who I'm talking to. But it is an unnecessary tackle. Scott could have just put on his wolf speed and just like grabbed his arm and be like, hey, stop that.
What up? I'm a werewolf.
It was a lot. Even when the boys explain what they want to talk about, Fenris refuses and drives away.
It would have been because they show like as he drives away, there's like this sort of out of place close-up shot of his license plate, but it's not a vanity plate. And it definitely should have said like Howlin' or something,
Like,
but it doesn't. It's just like a normal license plate. Like, why'd you go through the effort of showing me this?
Of doing, that close-up shot. It should have been like WLFMN, and then they could have been like, see, you just don't want to talk about it, but I feel like
No, I don't.
he would have been like, no, it's pronounced Wolfman, okay? Wolfman.
Undeterred, Stiles insists they break into Fenris's home while he's out. Scott claims it's a bad idea. Stiles says they learn more from their failures than successes, to which Scott replies, "You must be a genius by now."
That is pretty witty.
That was good for Scott.
Very unlike Scott, yeah, is what I was going to say before it was told for me.
He does have that smile on his face that says he's very amused with himself and his little joke.
I'm surprised he doesn't high-five himself like Will does.
The self-five. That feels like more of a Stiles move to me.
It does. Stiles wraps his hand in his flannel and tries to break the glass of Fenris's front door, but fails miserably and hurts his hand while he's at it.
Yeah, why wouldn't he have Scott do it?
It actually feels more like a Scott idea altogether.
Yeah, he could have just extended his claws, drawn a circle in the glass, pulled out that piece of glass, and reached his clawed hand inside and unlocked the door.
Are his claws sharp enough to cut a hole in a glass pane? Does he have diamond tips? Like,
well, they're like supernatural claws. They're like, they're super sharp.
okay, I'll take it.
Yeah.
She'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
Thank you. The prosecution rests.
Luckily, Scott finds the key hidden under the doormat.
I think that they included the bit with Stiles trying to punch the glass because they just wanted Dylan O'Brien to do some physical comedy in this little web series. Because we don't get a lot of it from him, but he's just so good at it. And it's very much a Stiles thing to do physical comedy. It feels like Stiles would have thought to check the mat, though. I feel like they're a little like reversed in this one.
Once inside, Stiles shares his plan to find Fenris's research and document what they need on his phone. But it turns out that Fenris isn't gone after all. He emerges from another room with a handgun. Stiles starts to leave, but Scott grabs him and makes them both stand their ground.
Okay, Scott really should have gotten in front of Stiles here because he could heal from a gunshot wound and Stiles could not.
Accurate.
Does anyone wonder why Scott didn't realize he was still in the house?
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that.
Plot
Because he's bad at werewolfing?
Because he's bad at he's still learning how to werewolf. Wherever this falls in the story of the show, he is still learning. He's still learning.
He's still learning.
He's still learning how to werewolf good. And
it's an ongoing process.
It is an ongoing process.
I bet if Allison was in the house, he would have known it.
Whoa. But yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I actually would have really enjoyed a moment of Stiles just looking at Scott and being like, seriously? And Scott being like, what? you have super hearing and super smell, and you didn't notice another human being like 8 feet away from us? What's wrong with you?
You didn't notice the cloud of Old Spice?
He just thought it was coming off of Stiles. Stiles wears Axe.
He does wear Axe. He does.
Like,
Stiles is
Scott, you know I'm an Axe guy. You know that. You've known that since before you were bitten. So Fenris, while pointing a gun at 2 teenage boys, says that he changed his name to get away from nut jobs like them.
Oh my God. Fenris, buddy, come closer. Come closer. This makes no sense because you changed your name to Conrad Werewolf. That is what happened. You're saying like, no, I don't talk about werewolves anymore. Okay, sir, sign your name. Yes, Conrad Werewolf. It's like, buddy, your story is just falling apart like at every single turn.
Since Fenris is still pointing a gun at them, Scott points out that as a doctor, Fenris took an oath to do no harm.
Well, not to like intruders or people with intent to burgle.
Okay. I'm not sure I even believe that Scott is familiar with the Hippocratic Oath. Like, maybe that's a little shitty of me, but like, I don't know if I buy that.
Well, his mom is a nurse, and I can almost imagine her like making a joke towards like Stiles, like, I would hit you with this bat, but I took a Hippocratic Oath.
Finally worn down, Fenris tells them a story from when he was working in the ER. A woman came in having been shot with an arrow, which she claimed had been meant for a deer, but had accidentally hit her. He learned 2 things that day. 1, that there are people who heal in a way that science can't explain, and 2, that there are also people who want to kill them. They used an arrow because the woman wouldn't be able to heal until it was taken out. They also cut their bodies in half. If you sever the body, there's no way they could heal.
Scott asks why people would want to kill them. Fenris speculates that it's down to fear of the unknown. After the ER incident, he spent 5 years looking for the woman and tracked her to Beacon Hills, but then she disappeared. All he could find was a photo of her and a young man, probably her son. Scott and Stiles examine the photo, and it's clear that the young man is, in fact, a young Derek Hale.
Baby Derek.
Baby Derek.
I'm like 98% sure that is like from a photo shoot from him promoting Seventh Heaven.
It does look circa Seventh Heaven-ish.
He's very smooth shaven.
I didn't like watch the show regularly because it was too like
Seventh Heaven.
What's the word?
Christian.
Yeah, that's it. But it does seem like it's the right time frame. Also, I just want to point out that like Fenris, what he says here about fear of the unknown is probably the most compassionate thing that any non-werewolf character has said about hunters at this point in the show. And by non-werewolf characters, I mean non-Derek characters, because it's definitely more compassionate than Scott's response to, and he is a werewolf at this point.
Fenris goes on to explain that most werewolves who are born into it have a ritual each year at the wolf moon. Scott is confused by that, but Stiles explains that the Native Americans gave every full moon a name. For example, February is the ice moon.
So watching this, I said which Native Americans, and they don't actually get into it. So after we watched this, I tried looking it up, and it's kind of difficult to find information about it because, well, we definitely don't teach enough about Indigenous peoples in American schools. But from what I could tell, different tribes had different terminologies, but the ones that Stiles is referring to seem to line up with some of the names that were published in the Farmer's Almanac, which historians speculate might have been based on Algonquin names, but a lot of those were not actually accurate and were just colonists sort of publishing things that they had heard but were not super well researched. But the Sioux name for the full moon in January does translate to something like the wolves run together moon. So the more you know. So Fenris explains that during the wolf moon, werewolf packs would gather sort of like a family reunion. They would perform rites of passage and draw power from one another. Alphas, betas, and omegas, the lowest of werewolves.
Fenris says he's researched werewolves for 15 years and he's never heard of a cure. He frantically searches for his cigarettes, which his housekeeper has hidden from him, and angrily tells Scott and Stiles that their time is up.
It's pretty casual for him to say he's been researching werewolves for 15 years.
Yeah, where did that amount of time come from? So yeah, I'm just curious as to where the 15 years time frame like came from. Is that whenever the woman first passed through the ER? I have a lot of questions there.
And he said he was looking for her for 5 years before she disappeared.
Yeah.
Yeah, the timing doesn't match up because in the pilot, we learned that the hailfire happened 6 years ago.
We actually don't learn that in the pilot.
Oh, is that the second episode?
Because Stiles said the fire happened a couple years ago in the pilot.
No, he says like 10 years ago.
Oh, does he? Okay, 10.
He says he's a couple years older than us.
He's a couple years older. The fire happened 10 years ago. Okay, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, and as many teenagers are wont to do, he says like 10 years ago, which is teenager for I don't know, but it's a 10-ish amount of time.
Yeah.
So, but it's clarified in Magic Bullet that it was, but he said that he was looking for Talia for about 5 years before she disappeared. Now, if we want to assume that disappeared meant died, which I would assume because Beacon Hills was her territory, so I don't know why else she would disappear from his radar, then that would place the ER thing 11 years before the events of season 1.
What if for him, I mean, this makes it confusing. More confusing. What if for him disappeared means he lost track of her? Maybe she realized he was looking for her and just got better at not being seen by him. You know, so maybe that, I mean, I feel like maybe that's what he meant. Like maybe he doesn't mean died. I don't know. This does make it more confusing because I feel like if he's like trying that hard to find her, she's probably going to figure it out, and then maybe she was like, oh shit, this guy's
stalking me.
He's stalking me. Can't have that for multiple reasons. The big one being I'm a werewolf, and just kind of hid herself. Like she didn't leave Beacon Hills or anything, but she just was like, we got to make sure he doesn't see me anymore. It does make it more confusing because I feel like it's supposed to be disappeared, being dead.
I didn't take it as him saying that she was dead.
Well, I just don't know how that would work, though, because he found a picture of her with Derek. Derek went to public school. How hard could it possibly be?
I don't know. Maybe he went to some public school. So I was like, can you tell me who this teenager is? And they're like, sir, you have to be removed from this property now.
But yeah, it is. The time frame is confusing, but that's kind of Teen Wolf for you.
The only time on this show that the time frame is confusing.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
As Scott is leaving, he asks if Fenris still believes. Fenris says that maybe there are people who can miraculously heal or who have enhanced senses, but werewolves are impossible. Scott tells him that if he really needs that nicotine fix, the cigarettes are hidden on the bookshelf, third shelf, behind the books, and he flashes his beta yellow eyes. Fenris goes inside and finds, to his shock, that Scott is right.
And he races back outside, and just like in that shot from Shawshank Redemption where he lifts his arm to the sky, he's like, thank you for giving me purpose once again. I wish Scott had flashed his eyes earlier. Like when they got to the house and he had them at gunpoint, he had flashed his eyes then. I feel like, I mean, I get dramatic ending and all that, but I'm also like, you need something from this person who doesn't want to give you the thing, but you have the thing he wants to, where it's just like, you have the tools at your disposal.
Derek said that if he gave away the werewolf secret, that he would kill him.
Scott also doesn't listen to Derek ever.
Right.
That is true.
Scott would be like, oh, he said that? What? When was that?
Did he?
Oh, was that when he was telling me that the alpha wanted me to be his pet or something?
Wolfies, that wraps up the beta section for Search for a Cure. And now we're about to dive into spoilers, not just for this web series, but for the whole Teen Wolf series. If you want to stay spoiler-free for all of the excellent stories to come, jump out now and we'll catch you next week. But if this isn't your first time in Beacon Hills and you want to hear more, here comes the alpha.
Really, why are you so interested in this? It's just a myth. It's a legend.
You sure about that?
I am beyond sure. I have the certainty of someone who has completely and totally destroyed his personal and his professional reputation for some idiotic obsession.
All right, Wolfies, here is our interview with John Posey. Let's have a listen.
Tyler and I were doing a movie together that just so happens that I wrote called Legendary. That wasn't my idea of a title. It's a hard one to live up to. It was something else, but we had just finished shooting in New Orleans when Tyler got word that he booked this, and I know he had gone back and forth. So rather than going back to Los Angeles with me, the kid just jumped on a plane and went to Atlanta, which is a much shorter flight.
Yes, sir.
And that's where I came from. When I came to Los Angeles in the 80s, I came from Atlanta. I'm from Florida, but I thought it'd make more sense if I try to get my union cards in Georgia, and it worked out very well. And so I was there for 3 years, and ABC invited me out, and I came out here, and it was just so fun to go back to Atlanta where they shot the first 2 seasons of Teen Wolf and actually run into people who I had known in the business who were suddenly looking at Tyler and wondering, God, I wonder if he's related to John. And the answer was yes. So that was our first. Tyler went to Atlanta, and then soon thereafter, they had said they wanted me. And you know what? I got to be honest, I'm not sure how that came about. I'd have to guess that, I had a chance to meet Russell. I had a chance to meet Jeff Davis. They knew of me. I can't say that Tyler probably didn't throw in a good word. It's hard to say. Just an episode of Selena, because Tyler's younger brother is one of the stars of Selena. So sometimes your kids can help you. You never know. So it could have been that. The fact that I played Doctor a number of times from ER to Seinfeld, which would be quite different than Doctor Fenris, by the way.
I would think.
Yeah. But there was an offer to do that, and it was just great fun. Tyler and I have worked together on stage. We've worked together in TV. We worked together on the film that I just described to you, the one called Legendary. And so it's always a blast. And I think when we do get a chance to work together, it's just like 2 actors who really get along and they're having fun together rather than me and my kid. And the same with Jesse. So we all of us have had an opportunity to do this, which would be some of the more rewarding experiences. But I can't quite remember how it came to be. I know we shot the first episode where I'm in the Colton Haynes' dream and pulling the wolf bane. And I have to believe, if I can go back, because this goes back a ways, I don't know that Dr. Fenris at that time, there was no Eichen House then. So I think I believe the name was Fenris, but I think he became something else later. So I think there was a question of, did we know he was going to continue? And I think the answer is no. I think it might have been a one-off until sometime later. And you had mentioned the Webber series about the search for the cure. Right. And I'd have to ask Tyler how that came to be. It was some connection with AT&T that I guess was the main sponsor.
Yeah.
Something they were doing. And that was kind of a fun episode where I knew more about Hale's background and everything. And it was kind of a fun little episode that the three of us did together, especially the two of them chasing me through the parking lot and tackling.
It's really funny. It's a wonderful, just like little slice of story that happens kind of in between episodes. And it's just so much fun to see, especially after you've seen the introduction of Fenris, because that introduction is pretty fantastic, where it's Colton is laying on this bed and his head is in the straps, and you're working with the tools, and that scene starts just so innocuous, where it's just a checkup. Super, this is nothing. But then, like, just second by second, it gets weirder and weirder, and you start pulling out these crazy contraptions, and Colton is just, you're telling him to stay still, don't move his head, and you have these wonderful close-ups on him, and then it goes to these wonderful close-ups of you with these great tools, and you start pulling stuff out, and I think
the blood splatter,
and then the petals falling. It's just this, I feel like this is a classic Teen Wolf scene where it starts normal and ends as this nightmare, and it's just so much fun.
It feels like it's just going to be a little checkup, or maybe he's got a mole. And I remember not quite sure what it was going to look like. And when I see something like that, when I come on, I thought, okay, I don't want to see everything. So there really wasn't a rehearsal other than the director. What is his name? Not Russell. Who's the other director who's so good?
Was it Tim Andrew?
Tim. It was Tim. And Tim will say to this day it was one of his favorite scenes because it was so creepy. Just the way it all came. And it was kind of freaking me out, because as I pulled it, you have to assume that, okay, if I don't rehearse and I'm seeing this for the first time, how would he really react, even though he himself is a surgeon? And so he sees creepy things. So it was, and I had to also be careful, because while I'm watching this, and as I teach acting, I always say, find the comedy in the drama and the drama and the comedy. And I'm not the first guy to say that. But as I'm watching the early episodes and I see what Dylan is doing, and I see what Tyler is doing, I'm thinking, is there any comedy in here for me, or am I just freaked out? And I think just the absurdity of the length of the Wolfbane continuing to come out like it was a bad magician joke. and so I just decided to play it where the more it happened, even though I have a medical background and I should be aware of these things, I was not aware of this. And so and I think it just kind of played that way. So it was kind of comical in a very kind of creepy, sort of a weird way. But it was an interesting way to sort of introduce this guy. And that's what we shot first. We shot that in Atlanta. And then the Webber series, we shot that here in LA County, just the three of us, which was really fun. It was still early on, and you know what? I'm not even sure if anything had aired yet. So I haven't had a chance to see too much. And if I wasn't in any of the episodes, I wasn't exactly sure. And Tyler's one of those guys that won't tell you anything unless you ask him. I didn't have a whole lot of information. And I didn't until I started to watch it. And I thought they did delightful stuff with Dylan and his comedy. And Jeff is so creative with the constant, monsters that he created each and every season, somebody brand new, to the point where in the last season, I was fighting a whole new level of, what were those guys called at the very end?
The Dread Doctors.
Oh, yes, of course, the Dread Doctors, and watching those guys on set with their makeup and everything. So it was just it was a lot of fun. And, I used to go and sometimes just watch, because they shot season 3 through 6 in LA, not too far from Tyler or me. So it was just fun to go on the set, and they would shoot so much at night that if I'd get done doing whatever I'm doing, I'd go over there at midnight and watch these guys shoot till sunup. And so, but I got to tell you, man, you have to be young to be on that show, because shooting days one day and nights another, boy, I think after the age of 30, that's a hard one.
You can imagine.
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, because sometimes we had the luxury of doing splits. where it's like you shoot a day, like it's all daytime stuff. And then the next day it's like we shoot half day, half night. And then the third day is all nights. But sometimes it's just like, all right, tomorrow we start at 8 p.m. And that's how it's, and you don't really, and so it's like you have to just basically stay up as late as you possibly can, all as far into the morning as possible, and then sleep to try and get your body acclimated. But sometimes.
But also, just as it's not a question you're going to ask, but I thought it might be interesting. I've been trying to get Tyler to play lacrosse forever because I was a lacrosse player in high school and college.
Oh, awesome.
Not a moment's of interest. And finally he says, "Hey, Dad, guess what? We're playing lacrosse." I said, "You are?" And so the first consultant who was there early on in the early days of trying to make this work was the guy you're talking to right now. So
nice.
I was pulling double duty as the lacrosse consultant for the first few games until they figured out what the game looked like. And it's a cool choice because it was very, as you can see, if they have to create a sport, it's very sort of ballet-like, a lot of slow motion, cool stuff you can do with shots, six, and the ball's flying through the air. And I'm glad they chose it, to say nothing of the fact that Tyler finally learned how to play the game too.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that's so cool.
You can actually play catch now.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
I can remember the night that I think I succumbed to electricity in the cell was the night of the 2016 election, and we all kind of sat there with our jaws wide open, watching on a huge screen on the back of the set that night. It was quite a bizarre evening, I have to tell you.
I couldn't imagine.
And I think, Will, you said that some of the events of season 6 were kind of inspired by the run up to the 2016 election, right?
Oh yeah, no.
In the writer's room.
Yeah, in the writer's room, because we had such great monsters all throughout the course of the show. But then I think it was Jeff. I mean, it must have been Jeff. That was just like, we will have monsters in the final season, but the big monster is just people who are kind of fed up with something. And granted, Beacon Hills has dealt with a lot in the last, 5 seasons, but like the main villains of season 6 are just people. And it's like, what happens when people get really angry and have weapons, and that's what happens.
I think I don't know if it was the last night, but if you were to ask what was the most fun, there was a lot of great actors, but certainly the one where I'm in the cell with Tyler and I take off and leave him standing there running away. It was always great fun because, again, whenever Tyler and I work together, whatever the relationship is, it's always just like two old guys that have been doing this for a long time. And it was always fun. I spent years with a one-man show traveling the country, and Tyler once, when he couldn't have been more than 5, was traveling with me. We were at a theater in Denver. It had a 6-week run. And he suddenly asks me, he says, "You mind if I jump on the show at the end?" And there is a little moment at the end where he could actually play the kid that I'm playing everybody in the show. I played 20 different people. And I thought, what a brilliant idea. So Tyler sits in the front row the entire time monitoring the play. Now, mind you, he's 5 and he's watching everything. It's almost like he's critiquing me. He knew when the time was, there was about 4 minutes remaining. And he would circle around backstage and the lights would go down, this very heavy, dramatic moment. The lights would pop back up and all of a sudden there's a 5-year-old kid sitting on the bench. And the people were programmed to think the entire play was just me. And it was. That's the way it was written. So when I traveled the country for 20 years doing this show, it was just me. That night he did that, kind of blew away the audience because the lights come back up and there's this teeny kid whose feet don't even touch the floor.
Oh,
Could have been more than 5. And then after and then he went, when we take a stage bow, he took a bow like he'd been on stage the entire time,
Nice.
One of the things, thank you. And then
You're welcome, everyone. You're welcome.
Thanks for showing up. And then we're having dinner afterwards, and you can see all the people coming by and telling Tyler how brilliant he was. That was our time working together when he was a little guy, and he was sort of very attuned to what was going on the stage, what I was saying and why. He would ask me questions about it. And I think I knew at that moment that that's sort of where he was headed. And sure enough, he was.
Was that the beginning? Was that around that time when he thought he wanted to do
I've
this?
been before. I used to take him with me. And I had some innate feeling that Tyler was not going to interfere with an audition. If it was a film or TV audition, I couldn't because there was too much. But I used to shoot a number of TV commercials. I didn't know you could make money doing that until I got to LA and I found I could. So I'd go in for any, car commercial, beer commercial, whatever, and Tyler would sit in the room, and all I had to do was look at him. I go, don't say anything. He'd sit back there and watch the entire thing unfold on the monitor, then critique me on the way home. So I think that was sort of kind of his thing too. This is what I want to do, and he was, When I first put him in Little League, the only reason he did it was because of the uniform. So I knew it's not sports. He's going to be an actor because he's all about the wardrobe. So yeah, I think I believe early on that this is just something he wanted to do at whatever level. And now, some years later, he's finding himself wanting more and more to get behind the camera and create and write. So I'm not sure what the next step is for him. But he's had a nice long run with it. I can remember the two of us were up in Toronto shooting a series that he shot before and after he did Made in Manhattan. And he was still young. I think Made in Manhattan, he may have turned 10 on the set. And somebody walked up to him and asked him if are you the little boy that did this? And he wasn't quite used to this adulation. So after he goes, yes, he looks at her and he goes, do I know you? I said, just say thank you. She's complimenting you. Do I know you? Why is she talking to me? Because she saw the movie. Oh, do I know you? So it took some getting used to, but he was always very much something that he, enjoyed and wanted to do. And again, now that he's pushing 30, I think everybody kind of slides in different directions and he's beginning to look at other things. Whereas his younger brother is kind of doing what he was doing and he's into it now. And he's in Selena, which is kind of cool. So it's kind of, it's a deja vu for me, showing up on the set with my kid and being in a scene with him, I've done it twice, so everything's cool now.
That's so awesome. I love that it's a family. This is the family business.
Yeah, and his younger brother wasn't interested. He saw what Tyler was doing, and he had a baseball career. He played all the way through college, and all of a sudden one day he said, "I think I'm going to jump in." I said, "Are you sure?" And so there he is. So yeah,
that's so cool.
Yeah. I can coach them both if they need to, whether it's a little lacrosse for Tyler, a little acting, whatever they need. We're all sort of in the same field, so it works out good.
That's fantastic. That's so cool.
So, and Teen Wolf was always fun. And again, I'm trying to go back and remember some of the things, and I can only remember how wonderful the set for Iconos. I mean, that was creepy walking in there, and you knew it was a set. I'd have moments in between scenes where I said, I'm going to go sit in the cell, and I kind of wish I hadn't. It really felt like you were in a dungeon, and accidentally somebody would lock the door, and you'd never be heard from again.
Yeah, no, it was a fantastic set. Our production designers and art departments and set decorators, every single set blew out of the water. Even if it was just like, oh, here's the McCall house. It's like, this house is amazing. I want to live in this house. And then it's like, oh, well, here's Icon house. It's like, this is amazing. Where is the exit, please?
And I do not want to live here.
So it's just, they committed to every single set and they were all beautiful.
Yeah, perfect. I can't tell you how many times I've been in a set and I'm thinking, man, I'd love to take a 15-minute nap, but the Icon house was not one of them.
No.
There were mattresses inside cells where you could have laid down. I said, no, I'll find my chair. I'm not laying down in the Icon house. It just felt too real.
Yeah,
that's how good it was. It was great. Yeah, what an ambitious show all the way around. I mean, MTV didn't put the heavy money, but you couldn't tell by the production value.
That is
stunning to look at.
Yeah, I feel like out of all of our interviews, the common thread is we had no money, but the show still looked just amazing. Like, it looked like we had like a $5 million budget per episode. And it's like, nope, not even close to that thing. But it's just all the money was on the screen in every single shot. And the ambition was fantastic and everyone pulled it off. It was amazing.
I remember either it was 1 year or 2 seasons, I can't remember, that the eyes that Tyler Hoechlin and Tyler had to do were contacts. And it was really killing them because the colored contacts are heavier than the colorless contacts. And so it was making them nuts. And sure enough, by season 2 or 3, they were able to do it all in post. So it made everybody's life a lot easier and it looked just as good. You really couldn't tell the difference. Every now and again, as I coach kids, when I say kids, a lot of them are younger. It just so happened. A lot of acting coaches don't want to deal with kids, but for some reason they fell into my lap. So I'll come upon an 11-year-old kid who knows every Teen Wolf episode and others who have never heard of it. It's very interesting.
That's awesome.
We've started an Instagram, and whenever we started thinking about doing the podcast, we thought we were going to get the original fans, but we've had so many like 13, 14-year-olds reach out to us and tell us how they caught the show. First one was on Netflix and then Amazon, now Hulu, and it's really like changed their lives. And it's really incredible hearing their stories. But so many of them don't know anything about like Search for the Cure or anything because it's been taken down since the original run of the show. So we're trying to know about all this stuff that they might not know about because it's on Hulu now instead of MTV promoting it.
Yeah, and even if it's 10 years later and society has changed somewhat, there's something really magnetic about what Teen Wolf did and how so many people came on board and talked. I can remember reading some of Tyler's mail from kids saying how much it changed their lives. And I don't think, I don't know how large an audience will find it the second time around 10 years later, but I think it might have the very similar effect. It was just you look at Jeff's background with Criminal Minds and you think, all right, now that's a creepy show. That's a really dark show. And Teen Wolf had a whole different sort of element of, while it was dark and supernatural, there was all kinds of just great heart and comedy and other things that I think, and putting Dylan in that role, Dylan O'Brien, I think was just a phenomenal idea, and the two of them together. And I remember how they met early on in the whole casting process and how they got along from the get-go. The first time they met, they were like the best of buddies.
They're incredible on screen together. It's just so great. And yeah, you believe them as best friends through and through.
Yeah.
Two very goofy kids. And they both were attracted to music. They had their own bands at the same time. So they had quite a bit in common. Also, the fact I think they were roughly the same age, and the youngest two in the cast, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
They both just turned 18 and the others were in their 20s. Except me, was older.
What an adventure. My gosh.
Yeah.
So appearing on the show from season 1 through season 6, they were so young when they started. What was it like getting to watch the cast grow over time?
Well, and they did.
Grow up.
It's interesting to watch, and you may not find the answer to that until you maybe come back to it, then you watch season 1 again. Tyler and I watched season 1 recently, and he looks like a baby.
He does.
He does.
He's so different.
They're all
He's got all the
young.
tattoos now and everything. Yeah. It's so different.
Trust me, I can't talk to me about the tattoos. None of that was my doing, but if you're 18, you're kind of on your own. But such a fresh-faced kid. And then, I've been on shows before where, like, I would come into season 3 of a show. I'd go back and watch season 1. And you say, boy, it took a while. It took about maybe a season before everybody realized who their character was and all the connections were. And you can see them grow. And the same was true here, where it takes a little while, even though you've got great direction and you've got great writing, for people to know who they are. And sometimes as that develops, the writers will move with it, where you can see certain cast members seem to blend together better. And so you could see it grow over that 6-year period to the point where it was funny, because I started thinking, hey, you guys look like you're not in high school anymore because you're 26, but you're still like in high school. And that's, it's the same was true, I guess, with Beverly Hills 90210. Some of those kids were pushing 30 when they were still in high school.
Right.
But it worked. But it's great just to watch the maturation and watch them get older and watch their hair change. And all of a sudden they're no longer kids anymore. Then you go back and you watch season 1, as I did and Tyler called me the other day and said, hey man, you ought to watch Teen Wolf. It's really good. I said, yeah, I know. Just because I'm watching it again. And it's so ambitious. And it was, even from the very first episode, the very first one, even the opening moments where he's hanging upside down or he's outside stick and Dylan flips over the awning upside down, from the get-go. It was that combination of supernatural, of fear scaring the hell out of you, and at the same time having some comedy, and it just works so well.
Yes, it does. Yeah, the show really has something for everyone. Romance, drama, comedy. I think that's why it resonates so much with fans, like you were saying. And
how great for this to come along and find that young audience. And by the way, you guys recall they had great music in the show all the time.
Yeah.
They introduced a lot of great artists, a lot of music. And I thought, I don't know which department handled that, but I used to comment to Tyler, man, there's a new piece of music. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, did they not credit them on the episodes themselves where the music was coming from? Or
a lot of times they did do that. Yeah, that was something.
Yeah, they'd have little on-screen pop-ups.
Yeah. And that was great.
Which is cool.
I don't know if that was the connection to MTV, but it was great music on the show.
Yeah.
Really was.
That would have been Laura Webb, who was our music supervisor. She found this ridiculous cache of music and brought it to the show. And I have so many favorite songs that are from this show. And the music was always just fantastic.
And so, it was great. Very ambitious, small network, but a very ambitious show. And I can remember early on, Tyler's reps weren't so sure this was the thing because it was MTV, and let's go find network instead. And Tyler was pretty sure of it. He said, "No, man, I like this. I like the feel of this," and so he stuck with it and was there to the very end. And I'll tell you, it's I hadn't seen that kind of adulation. I mean, there was a time probably before all of us born when there was no TV, when the movie stars got that kind of adulation before it kind of splintered off into other things. But 2 summers ago, Tyler, myself, a friend of his and a friend of mine decided to take a 4-man motorcycle trip across. We were going to go to Milwaukee because it was a 125th anniversary of Harley, and they wanted Tyler for some photo ops. And I thought, well, let's ride.
Yeah.
Why fly us? Let's be
Yeah.
And Tyler thought that was a great idea. And Harley loaned a couple of bikes, and we had 2 bikes, but we kept running into rain. And so we finally stopped in Denver, and they flew us to Milwaukee and flew us back, and it was great. But even in the smallest, I mean, we were in St. George, Utah, pulling into a gas station in the middle of nowhere. And within 3 minutes, the whole city of teenagers has somehow found their way to this gas station. No matter where you are in this country or other countries, it was a hit. It was a big hit. To this day, I remember helping Tyler with his taxes, and I said, "What is this DoorDash that you have 900 entries?" He goes, "I can't leave the house, Dad. I have to order in." I didn't know what DoorDash was, but he said, I can't, man. I gotta bring the food to me. I can't eat in peace." So a huge hit that really impacted a lot of people, and not just here. I mean, all over he did those Comic Cons, I think, all over. Well, he can't now, but up until 2019, Australia, Brazil, New Zealand, Paris. It was just.
Yeah.
We have to go through and kind of use Google Translate because we'll have fans reach out from all over the place. We'll get messages in like Turkish, Russian, French, Spanish, and Portuguese. And we're like, we don't know what you're saying, but we want to answer you. So we'll just have to do our best. Yeah. Fans all over love Teen Wolf.
All over the world. Yeah.
It's really something. So my hat's off to Jeff for whatever he had in mind and everybody else. And Russell, who was probably the only guy on the set older than me to really know what he was doing and keep young at heart. What a great director.
Oh, yeah.
He is.
Great to work with. It was rewarding because, when I came in, it was funny because not everybody knew, even though the same last name. And I never said anything. When I did my 6 or 7 episodes, whatever it was, and there were people on the set who had no idea who I was. And other people who knew, and nobody ever said anything about it, but we just sort of treated each other as, hey, I guess he was the right actor for the role, and he just happened to be related to Tyler. But it was always professional and fun working with Tyler. And I think the AT&T thing you're talking about, the search for the cure, may have been the only time I also worked directly with Dylan. I can't remember, but I think so. Because a lot of the times when I was in Eichenhaus, that wasn't part of Dylan's storyline.
Right.
Tyler was down there a couple of times. A couple of doctors were down there. Dylan's dad, Lyndon, was down there a couple of times. Mostly I was in with some really bad people.
Icon attracts the worst of the worst. So
yeah.
Were there any actors or characters that you would have liked to have shared more screen time with?
Michael Hogan, boy, he was interesting.
Yeah,
and so interesting. I remember looking him up, and he'd been around for a long time. And what a great piece of cast. And Lyndon and I came from Atlanta together. Lyndon Ashby. So we actually knew each other. It was really kind of funny to walk on set, and there he was, because we had both come out to LA at the same time from Atlanta back in the 80s, and he went back to Atlanta, and largely that's how he got in, because they were casting in Atlanta, so he was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah,
and great work. But yeah, Michael Hogan, what an interesting dude! What a really interesting guy to watch. And every episode that he was in, yeah. Kate, Jill Wagner was a lot. Excuse me, guys, I'm probably older than I do for simple names. Yeah, she was great. It was really, really terrific casting, and it was, you don't know what you're going to be going into when you walk in, and it was just a great cast of people. And I never knew. I'm thinking, what is this Doctor Fenris? What does he look like? And it's always fun to play. Like I said, I played my share of different doctors and entirely different, kinds of programming, from the heavy dramatic to Seinfeld. But you want to make sure you're sort of in the same league with everybody, and that it works, and that it's believable, and that you're not in there saying, well, I'm Tyler's dad. Do you think they're just throwing me a bone? And I know I felt very comfortable and very at home with this guy, and he was a lot of fun to play. I know he was sort of covering for the supernatural guys down in the basement. But at the same time, like that Wolfsbane episode we were talking about, it still freaked him out. And I think kind of, if you don't play that, you don't want to go to the comedy route like they did on Young Frankenstein, but it was just as dark. But it was very kind of real and creepy. And there would be moments of just sort of oddball humor that I'd throw out there to see if it worked. And for the most part, it did. So it was just a real fun experience. The funny thing was, they would bring me back like a year here, another year there. So much had transpired in between. I wasn't sure where everything was if I hadn't sort of watched every episode. And sometimes I miss a few. So I'm sort of guessing as I am. And I know Holland and I had a scene where she was locked down there somewhere that was a lot of fun. And sometimes when I would get in there, just like, sometimes when you're block shooting, you're not sure what episode you're in or what's happened or where you are. And so that's where you just have to sort of trust everybody.
Right.
You have guys like Russell on the set or Tim directing things. Just say, where are we in this? Who am I talking to? Who's my buddy and who's not? And I'll run with it and hope that we make it work. So there's a lot of that block shooting now that people do, and you have no idea where you are or what season you're in. So
in the web series, Dr. Fenris mentions berserkers, and then berserkers end up on the show as like major monsters seasons later, and there's like no mention of them in between, but like there's sort of that little breadcrumb in Search for a Cure, and later we see them and find out that they're real too. So I thought that was really interesting that he's the one who actually introduces that.
I wonder if Jeff had that in mind. I love that name, the Berserkers, because I know as I was talking to Tyler early on, he said, there's a lot of interesting information about this whole what's it called? Lycanthropy and the Wolfsbane and everything. And I said, yeah, you're right. It's like it's a real thing. You start looking it up in the encyclopedias, and there it is, whether it's myth or not. And that's what was kind of fascinating about that Search for the Cure, was reading that. And I thought, man, is this real? But you're right. They didn't bring the Berserkers back for a couple of seasons or so. And then they really did.
Yeah, they were great monsters for us to play with. So in Search for the Cure, we learn that Fenris is sort of compelled to study the supernatural. From your time diving into that character, where do you think that type of compulsion comes from for a character where something just wraps up your life completely and you just can't let that go?
I think if I were to play something, it would be that he must have heard something as a kid from somebody. Maybe there was a deep, dark grandfather who was a doctor who brought it to his attention.
Nice.
Because it's something that you obviously bring that up to people that will think but he was hurrying it for a long time. So there's something that he knew from somebody. It's like what might be conspiracy theory nonsense to some people meant something for him, and it turned out it was real. Just nobody believed him. And I think even in that Search for the Cure, he was pretty sure the guys were there to make fun of him until he realized they were looking for information. And like everybody else, is like, stop making fun of me, was his sort of point of view. Leave me alone. And sure enough, they're looking for something, which kind of surprised him to see. So he kind of feels like that outsider who had some information that nobody wanted to believe in, and so they kind of shunned him.
Right.
So that's sort of what I would play. That there was something deep, the recesses of something that happened to him when he was a kid, or was told, or literature that he found that might have been the secret literature of a grandfather or another doctor in his family, something like that. I guess.
Now I want that story.
If they ever came back and wanted to create something, I'd be right there.
Do you have any just really fun stories from set that you'd like to share with us?
You mean from Teen Wolf? Let me think.
Yeah.
Again, and it would always be mostly just hanging out with Tyler and his friends, and always, they'd say, they go, Mr. Posey, they're ready for you now. And I always thought, Mr. Posey? Where'd that come from? Am I that old? Am I my dad? But I wanted to sit back and let this be Tyler's thing. I mean, there are many episodes of shows I did where I had probably a lot of very entertaining stories, whether it be Seinfeld or working on Cheers and some of these other things that I did early on when I got here. But watching Teen Wolf, it was just so interesting to sit back and watch Tyler in his element, seeing how far he had come as a little 8-year-old kid who got started. And here he was 10 years later, sort of doing his thing. And he was very dedicated to the show. He was a good ambassador for the show. I know in my years of travel that a lot of actors will get to do a TV series, and after 2 years they go, man, why don't I get off the show and do another one? And Tyler was never that guy. He was just very happy to be there and did what he could to make sure everything worked. And he promoted the show and was not the kind of guy that was going to bounce to the next thing. And I would have to say maybe the best day I had on the set of Teen Wolf was not an episode I was in, but it was watching him direct his episode.
Right. Yes.
And I kind of sat behind him.
Oh, yeah.
And he directed just the one, but I know it came in under budget, under time, and he was great. And I'm watching him do his thing, and I thought, man, this is great. Because I don't know that I have that skill. I tend to sort of defer to other people, which you could never do as a director. And it was just fascinating just to sit back and watch him do what he did and do it well and have and see the final product. It was great. I think it was maybe the last season.
It was in the last season. Yeah.
He did an incredible job with
Yeah.
it. He's very talented.
I remember seeing him on set. He just had such incredible energy, you know, because the days are long and the nights are even longer, and it's a hard job. It's not glamorous. You know, sir, that it's not glamorous. You know, it's like you're all there to do a job. And the glamorous part is what the camera sees. Everything else around it is just hard work. But he just had incredible energy, and everyone was happy making it. And I really hope we get the chance to talk to him about the show in general, but definitely about the episode he directed, because it was just such a great breath of fresh air, you know, because we had so many great directors on the show, and each one is different. And then he came in, and so excited. It was so much fun.
Yeah, he did the prep work and the post work, and he was great on set with everybody. I was not in that episode. I'm going to come in and watch it. And I've got great pictures of him looking at the monitors at Video Village and making his decisions. And it was just really rewarding to watch it. So I would have to say privately and secretly, that was the most fun I had on the set, was just sitting back there and watching him do his thing.
I love that.
That's wonderful.
That's
so wonderful.
Yeah. And I think that's where he's headed. I think as he's talking more, he's got a partner, he's creating stuff they want to get made. And he did a Truth or Dare, and kind of likes that world of zombies and things like that. Just did a zombie film recently that I had a little cameo in there with him. And
Alone, right?
Yeah, Alone. Yeah. Along with Donald Sutherland. And so he may be he keeps thinking that that's the way to go, and I'd love to see him pursue that, because he really did have fun doing that. Very rewarding, and you know, kind of like some people say, what do you feel the most accomplished? And as much as I've had a fun sort of a varied acting career that's bounced around, probably my greatest day was on the set of a film that I wrote, when I hear Patty Clarkson and Danny Glover delivering the words exactly as I wrote them. Or having them both call me at night saying, John, let me ask you how to do this scene. I'm going, you want to ask me how to do a scene? You're Patty Clark. I don't know what to tell you. And so that was very rewarding to watch those guys come in and get a film made that I had written as a spec script. I wasn't hired to write it. I wrote it one day thinking one day we'd get it made, and we did. And so you know, watching Tyler was kind of like that, you know, when you're watching somebody who's doing something from scratch, just as when my script got made. It was very rewarding. So I think Tyler feels the same way about his directed episode as anybody did, would be my guess.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
So we've talked a lot about the various monsters and ghouls on Teen Wolf. What type of creature would you have most wanted to play on Teen Wolf?
And those Dread Doctors look like something out of Mad Max, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was so good. So good.
Mad Max, to this day, I don't care which one, number 1 all the way through number 5, is some of those fantastic. And I'm sure Russell, being, you know, from that part of the world, would probably agree that those are the monsters you want to create. And they just did a wonderful job with these guys. And again, being that it was not a heavily budgeted show, you wouldn't know it by the final product. You really wouldn't. And it was, you know, I didn't get a chance to, you know, it would have been great for me to have a little more time with these guys in the dungeon down there at Icon. We didn't do that, but it was just so funny sitting in chairs as we're getting ready to go on, while these guys are sitting in their chairs like drinking Cokes. You know? And I've had a few of those where you're sitting down. I mean, that's always the funny commercial, or where like Clark Gable's walking by a couple of guys dressed as monsters on the same lot. Well, it felt that way sitting in our chairs, ready to go on with Teen Wolf. It was very entertaining. I got a chance to see Eric's work up close, like I did often walking in the trailer, watching Tyler have to peel off 3 hours of teeth and sideburns and fangs and stuff. So it was like that with these guys. And if I'm not mistaken, these actors who they brought in to play these Dread Doctors had to be fairly tall on their own. I know there was some lifts, but I think these guys were, they were well over 6 feet.
Yeah, Doug Tate, one of the actors, and Marty, whose last name is escaping me. I'm sorry, Marty. They're very tall. And Caitlin Deschelle, who played with the geneticist, she's 5'10". I think she's very tall. And they're all very fit and toned, and they all know how to move. They are all just great movement artists. And like I know, yeah, they knew what they were doing, and they brought those characters to spectacular life.
Boy, did they.
Any of your appearances on Teen Wolf, what was your favorite scene to film?
I think it might have been the last one, because there was all this action going on where I'm electrocuted. There's water flooding. There's all kinds of chaos. And if I'm not mistaken, that might have been the last one I did. And so there was a lot going on that day. And you'll have to excuse me, because sometimes some of these scenes run together. But there was a lot that had to happen to make that work. And I think Tim Andrews was directing that episode as well. And it's funny, when you get down in there, you sort of get used to the place. And after a while, when, like I say, rather than hanging out in the trailer, you hang out in that sort of dungeon area, it starts to grow on you after a while. And you can kind of feel the despair and the darkness of everything. So when you get to that moment where everything happens, where I guess you meet your demise, it becomes very real. Whoever was, all the special effects and the stunts and all that, it all just, you get right there and I'm ready, because I'm standing down there waiting. And I think, I want to say that might have been the last day that we shot all that. And, the funny thing is also is while you're down there and some of the other mental patients who are down there, you're looking at these guys, you're going, hey, dude, you okay? Background actors, and they have to spend the whole day in the dark corner someplace. I'm going, man, I hope that guy gets a beer when he gets out of here.
Oh, yeah. Got to suffer for your art.
Yeah, there were quite a few of those guys hanging out down there in the dungeon. I hope they weren't affected negatively by it. But I think that would be it, other than just working directly with Tyler and having that one scene where we all run out of the dungeon there together. It was funny. Seth, like some other guys, sometimes you come on and say, and you don't know who knows you. And Seth would say, I think Seth, he knew I was Tyler's dad, but he didn't know I was an actor. And I go, okay. Yeah, about 30 years, but so. Obviously not everybody knows your work if you're not the A-list guy, but it was fun. Yeah, you never know what they're thinking. So I think I had a chance to work with I can't remember Tyler. Oh yeah, Tyler Hecklin and I think we worked in the first episode with the Wolfsbane. I think it was Colton, Tyler Hecklin, and me. So I got a chance. I think I pretty much worked with the entire cast of kids at some point or another, probably in the first couple of seasons before we switched to the much later. Some of them were no longer there. It was great fun. And I hope that Tyler and I get a chance to do something together, whether he's directing me or I've written for him again. Tyler was also in that film with Patty Clarkson and Danny Glover. And there's a scene where I yelled at him. And I said, Tyler, I think that might be the first time I ever yelled at you.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, yelled at him as cast members. I mean, my job in the scene was to yell at him. He said, Dad, I don't think you've ever yelled at me before. So that was it. So yeah, hopefully we'll get a chance to do some more of that, whatever side of the camera we're on.
I hope so. Very much that. Yeah.
So how did filming in LA on that set compare to filming in Atlanta in season 1?
Well, I think in Atlanta, most of it was location. I don't think they ever actually built much in the way of sets because they weren't. I don't think they planned on being there that long. And Atlanta's fun because I know Atlanta because I came from Atlanta, so it was great to be there. But then once you get here, it just makes life so much easier when you're going to a place where everything is built in that one location there in the Northridge Chatsworth area. So and it's just kind of convenient. I mean, I think as actors, sometimes even crew, it's always fun to go on a location someplace deep in the woods or some house or some corporate building someplace where you get to. But I think after a while, probably most people are more comfortable just going to a trailer and knowing where you're going to be within that building. And it was great, the sets that they built in the sort of warehouse that they had, the two different locations that they had in LA. I think in Atlanta, I don't think they ever got that far. I think it was almost all location. Will, you may have a better answer. I can't recall because I was only there for a couple of episodes, but it was mostly location shooting.
It was a lot of location work for the first 2 seasons. There were some sets, but not like seasons 3 through the end where we built a ton of sets on both of the stages we used.
What about on Teen Wolf? At what point did you find out that you were going to meet your demise on Teen Wolf?
Gosh, I think it was not till there, and I can't even remember. There was some conversation about, did he fake his own death? Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was somebody else. I wasn't sure if I'd be coming back. I just remember there was that talk. I said, did I die or do we think I died? And everybody said, we don't know yet.
It's the Teen Wolf way.
That is Teen Wolf way, yeah.
Fairly close to the end. I said, yeah, okay, let me know if you need me, but it was fun getting electrocuted while standing in water.
Did you have any upcoming projects you wanted to talk about?
I don't. You know what? I've got scripts that are out there, and that's all I know right now. I know Jesse and Tyler are doing their thing, but I've been, for most of the last year, I've been teaching a lot. Got the scripts back out there again. We'll see. Maybe in a few weeks I'll have an answer because I've got a sports script, a Christmas holiday film, and this cool medical drama, and they're all being looked at right now. So I may have a different answer.
Well, yeah, definitely let us know so we can check it out.
Yeah, go to Whitefire or to either, if you go to Facebook and it's called Father, Son, and Holy Coach, but there should be a link on the Whitefire Theater and you can watch that show streaming. And I want to say that it's going to become available. I think they said May 2nd, but you've got 2 or 3 days to watch it or something like that. I'll go back and look at it and I can get that. Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's one thing. Yeah, thank you. That's one thing about COVID has allowed the opportunity to see plays and stuff that normally wouldn't be able to, just because they've made them streaming, like old productions of them and stuff. That's been one very small silver lining there. It's getting to see plays I wouldn't normally get to see.
Watch it, and mine was shot. It's not me now. It was shot a couple of years ago in front of a live audience, so it's one of the last ones we did. But take a look. It's kind of a fun show. And the other rewarding thing of working with Tyler and Jesse both is that the last round we did, they produced it. So they would come out whenever we traveled. They were with me. So
that's awesome.
Although I did find out that sometimes young girls would come to the show just in hopes of finding Tyler and could care less what I was doing on stage.
Not surprised by that.
Made that mistake of opening it up at a high school that I went to, and there were about 75 girls who were 17 years old. I thought, why are they? Oh, yeah.
Maybe they've just discovered a love of one-man shows.
Yeah, it could happen.
I was going to come on stage or what, but they bought tickets, and I had no idea whether they had any idea what I was talking about while I was on stage, but they sure knew what time it was. Well, this was good, guys.
Yes, sir. This was fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah,
everything
so
has been
much.
So amazing talking to you.
Cool.
Yes.
Great. Thanks very much. Good talking to all y'all. See you again.
Yes, sir. See you soon.
Bye.
Starring Dad Posey.
Starring Dad Posey. And he's really good in this. Like, I thought he was great in, what was that, the 5th episode or the 6th episode, when he has that scene with Jackson getting the stuff.
9.
Oh, that's right. It's Wolfsbane. Like, he's great in that scene. It's just a small little one-off thing. And I'm so happy they brought him back for this. And maybe we'll see him again. Maybe keep an eye out, listeners, for some more Dr. Fenris.
So John Posey, in addition to being in Search for a Cure, is also in Wolfsbane in season 1. That's episode 9. He shows up in season 4 in A Promise to the Dead. And then in 2 episodes in season 5, A Novel Approach and The Last Chimera. And then in season 6B, he shows up again in Said the Spider to the Fly and Raw Talent, at which point he dies.
He makes it pretty far.
He does. He makes it from season 1 all the way to 6B.
Yeah. And he hides out in Icon. for a couple of years before we see him again. And it's a great surprise when he comes back. But I remember being in the writer's room and we were like, okay, we're going to Icon. We're going to have this doctor character. And then I think it was Jeff or someone was just like, what about Posey's dad? Let's just bring him back again. Why instead of having like this whole new character, it's like, let's just do that. That'll be fun. And that's what we did.
And it is fun.
It is. It's totally fun to see him again because you forget about this character because he's in one episode and he's in one scene in season 1. Then he's in this web series that I wouldn't blame you if you didn't see it. And then he shows back up like 3 years later and he just out of nowhere, he's right there and you're like, oh shit.
You're still here. Hey, man.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. Is your friend Jackson with you? You're like, no, he left. He went to England.
Werewolves London.
It's so interesting in this web series, they were introduced to new ideas that get paid off later in the show. Like Omegas are brought up and they're not mentioned, like you said, in season 1, but they're a thing in season 2. Like in the first episode, we have the Omega, the homeless guy who's like eating dead bodies and stuff, and then who gets cut in half at the end. And then Berserkers, my God, they make a big appearance in season 4, especially in the season opener, all that stuff in the tunnels. It's very Aliens-esque, where it's just you're getting like close-ups of like bony spines and like their talons in the dark, and you're like, there is something in here. And then one of the characters is like, there's something in here with us, and it's just so awesome. And then you finally. I don't think we see them in their full glory in that episode. I think don't they attack at the school? It's like a nighttime scene. And I think that's the first time we actually see, because I think it's Scott and Malia are like running away. And then like they come to it's like all in slow motion. They come to a stop and it's like through that school tunnel that they had at that location. And it's just that Berserker walking towards them in slow motion, all backlit.
Of course, in slow motion.
In slow motion because it looks beautiful. And it's just like these are monsters, like monsters on this show. So
the Berserkers I think is the big one. And then like you said, they get more into Omegas later.
There's no other mention of Omegas in the first season, which I find interesting. Like whenever Derek describes himself, he describes himself and Scott as betas, even though it makes more sense for them to be Omegas. Derek, I kind of understand a little bit more because he just lost his alpha.
But I feel like the way Omegas are handled in the show proper, when that actually comes up starting in season 2, they portray them kind of differently. So the way Fenris talks about them in Search for a Cure kind of makes it sound like within a pack, there is a hierarchy that includes 3 roles, right? Alpha being the leaders, betas being the other pack members, and then omegas being sort of bottom of that pack hierarchy. But once we actually talk about them in the show, omegas are more like lone wolves that don't have a pack. That what defines an omega is not having a pack at all.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit of a shift there.
Yeah.
So that's kind of interesting.
Scott doesn't have any sort of allegiance to the alpha. But I guess he is being like wooed.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say like being sort of pack courted by the alpha. Like technically we know he doesn't have an allegiance. Scott has decided that he doesn't have an allegiance, but it seems like sort of the default is that the alpha that bit him would consider him to be part of his pack until drastically shown otherwise.
I would like to know more about this whole idea of like omegas joining in with a pack to participate in like rites of passage and this drawing of power, because I thought like the whole definition of omega as we go on in the series is being separated from a pack and being the lone wolf, so to speak.
Yeah.
He has been doing all this research, but it doesn't seem like, it's not firsthand research, right? Like he's clearly not sitting down and having deep conversations with werewolves, right?
Yeah.
So, it's possible that the information that he has is good, but not perfect.
Yeah. Yeah.
So his concept of what an omega is and the werewolf community concept of what an omega is differs.
Yeah. It seems like his information, like when it comes to alphas, betas, omegas, is drawn like from real packs, because like real packs,
Right, like
real
actual
wolves
wolf
have
packs.
omegas, and they're the last one that eats and all that. And I feel like On Fire takes that same approach, where it's like kind of taking the actual pack structure of real wolves and planting that on top of a human family, and then it changes for season 2, where they're like, no, our omegas are lone wolves and outcasts.
I like the lone wolf thing better. I think it fits better into the portrayal of pack dynamics that we get on the rest of the show, because that doesn't feel like a very familial thing, right? To have it's fine to have like a matriarch and or a patriarch, a pack leader, and then just pack members who look to them for leadership. But like having like a pack bitch just seems shitty.
Yeah, it's not a human thing. Like that's an animal thing. And it's like you're putting animal stuff on top of humans. And it's like, well, but that just makes you an asshole. And we can't have Talia Hale be an asshole or something. So
yeah, I definitely I really enjoy the mythology that the show handles, but I do appreciate like the research that went into like On Fire and everything to create kind of like a world that hadn't fully been built up by Teen Wolf yet, because it was like like so
it wasn't established yet.
Yeah. So I do still really appreciate like the effort that went into coming up with that canon.
Absolutely. The world building, the added world building in On Fire is very well done. Like, I mean, it doesn't feel out of place, or at least like at that point in the show.
Maybe there is ultimately some retconning, which I feel like couldn't be avoided, but certainly at the point that it came out, it fits very well into the canon that had been established so far, and definitely delves deeper into some of the characters, mostly Derek. Yeah, and it's also interesting both in On Fire and in Search for a Cure, the discussion around Wolf Moon and what it means to the werewolf community. I'm really enjoying that phrase, and I'm not going to give it up, just so you guys know, because the pilot of Teen Wolf was called Wolf Moon, but it's not like it's ever discussed in the show proper. Despite that being the title, it's not like nobody talks about the Wolf Moon or what that means.
Yeah.
To the story. So it is kind of cool to get that information, especially because if you consider at least parts of On Fire, the parts that haven't actively been retconned, to be canonical, then it does have even more significance to the story, because that's when the Hale Pack was killed, was on Wolf Moon.
Yeah, that concludes this week's episode of Return to Beacon Hills. We hope you had as much fun listening as we did talking about all things Teen Wolf. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at RTBH Podcast, and on TikTok and Tumblr at Return to Beacon Hills. And don't forget to support the show by going over to patreon.com/RTBH Podcast. If you'd like to ask us questions or offer suggestions for future topics to discuss, you can email us at returntobeaconhills@gmail.com. Rate and review us on iTunes. 5-star reviews get a shout out. Have a great week, and we'll see you again soon on Return to Beacon Hills.
Dude, it's Beacon Hills.